Here's the magic number behind me, 218. They reached that last night around 6:30 East Coast time. There are still about 8 races to be decided. I'm going to take you quickly through a couple of those, especially this one in Colorado. Let's start there. Lauren Boebert is hanging on right now. This huge district right here in the southwestern part of the state. She's up by 1,100 votes. We got estimated voting at 99%. So she's hanging on. So that's one that may stay in the Republican column. A few others out here in California here, and actually there are several of them. Let me start here. This is California 3, a huge district that borders Nevada. We've been watching this all week. Kevin Kiley's hanging on there, the Republican lead here now, just shy of 9,000 votes. You come to the Central Valley here, this would be California 13, and look at this. John Duarte has now taken the lead again over his Democratic challenger. This race in particular has been a couple votes here, a couple votes there. It's flipped many times throughout the past week. The Republican has a lead of 963 votes as of this moment. Pop down here a little to the south, David Valadao. Wow, he is in a fight for his political life in a new district, hanging on right now. A lot of Democrats in his new district. He's about 4,000 votes higher than his Democratic challenger. And this is a change too, Dana, right? We've been watching that number, right, at 54% yesterday for like 5 days. Now you're at 67%. And so if Republicans were able to take those 4 seats that I just talked about, there's another race up in Alaska that Democrats are going to take based on ranked choice voting. This number from 218, by my count, would either go to 221 or maybe 222. But I think that's about where the number is as of this writing. But I know there's a guy with a big brain waiting to come up right now who will tell us what that's about, Dana.
That's right, and his name is Karl Rove. Let's bring him in now. And Karl, you're no stranger to divided government. From your experience, what does this mean for Washington? What can people expect?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think Bill is absolutely right. We've been on a trajectory where the Republicans would take 221 seats. But last night, John Duarte moved back into the lead in California 13 by 863 votes. There are 2 Democratic counties that have a little bit out. And if those counties come in at the rate that they're coming in to date, the Democrats will pick up about 400 votes, but there's 1 Republican county that still has some vote out. And if it comes in, it offsets that by 225. And if that's the case, the Republicans would get the 222nd seat by about 700 vote margin. And wouldn't that be ironic? Because the Democrats today have controlled the previous Congress by 222 to 213. And wouldn't it be ironic if the Republicans took control by the same margin, 222 to 213?
Right back where we started. A couple of things here. Karl, we're going to learn a lot over the next 2 hours. You know, whether Republican plans and investigations, what's Nancy Pelosi's future all about. Just take you back to a week ago. Here is the president when asked about whether or not he would change anything.
The next 2 years, do you intend to do differently to change people's opinion of the direction of the country, particularly as you contemplate a run for president in 2024?
Nothing, because they're just finding out what we're doing. I'm not going to change anything in any fundamental way.
Yeah, what's interesting about this moment in time that we're talking with you, no one's wrong because no one really knows what will come of it. But if you had a crystal ball, how would you forecast all of what we're
Well, first of all, he's right. Everybody's finding out more about what he's done, and the Republican Congress is going to say stop. There's not going to be a gigantic new Build Back Better bill. There's not going to be a renewal of the expansion of the American Rescue Plan. The spending, the trillions of dollars in additional spending, is simply not going to be supported by the House of Representatives. My hope is that there are ways to find committee chairs in the House. We'll start to work on some bills that would have a positive and incremental improvements in structures of government in various parts of our lives. But the Republicans are going to start off by saying no more big spending programs, no gigantic expansion of the government. And for the President of the United States to say he doesn't need to change is simply astonishing. Of course he has to change. He no longer has a Democratic House that is going to roll his agenda through. He's got now divided government. And if he wants to get anything done, he better recalibrate and figure out how to work with the Republicans rather than saying, nope, not going to change a thing. Just keep doing what I'm doing.
Karl, it's inevitable that people will finish one midterm and start looking to the next election, and that would be a presidential election year. And we know that former President Trump announced already this week, and then Governor DeSantis. Everyone's kind of looking at him to see what he'll do. You're no stranger to somebody who is a governor who just won re-election by a strong margin, who then eventually decides to run for president. Get your take on this after you hear from Ron DeSantis when he was asked about it yesterday.
No, look, I think we just finished this election. Okay, people just need to chill out a little bit on some of this stuff. I mean, seriously, we just ran an election. We have this Georgia runoff coming, which is very important for Republicans to win that Georgia runoff.
Whether DeSantis or anyone else, do they have to decide right now and jump in the race this early?
No, in fact, DeSantis and Glenn Youngkin, another potential contender, had the best of all possible worlds in a way, because they can say, look, I'm thinking about it maybe, or I'm willing to give it consideration, but I've got to pay attention to my legislative session back home. Both of them have the legislatures coming in January, and I'm sure both of them want to accomplish some things. But they can focus on that and let people come to them and, you know, have intimate discussions with party leaders and party donors and party activists about what, if they decided to run, what it might look like. And they can begin to do the groundwork for a presidential campaign without having to formally announce. It is, once you announce, you have to keep it going. And to my mind, it's getting a little strange. President Trump announced, and what's he going to do to keep that going? And the fact that there are other contenders out there who are possibly thinking about it, Nikki Haley, Mike Pompeo, in addition to the two governors I mentioned, and Senator Cruz of Texas and others. You know, this race is going to take a while before it begins to firm up, and as a result, it's going to be hard for the first guy in there to sustain it. Yeah. We saw this in 2007 and 2008. Remember, the polls showed the leader at that point was Rudy Giuliani, and it was hard for him to begin, you know, early in that case, 2007, let alone 2006, it was difficult for him to sustain that momentum, and eventually it petered out. So, smart move by the governor to say, everybody chill out. We got a little bit of time. We got a couple of important things to get done, the Georgia runoff, and then he's going to be able to say, and I got to attend to my business at home, all the while using the magic of the telephone and the magic of airplane tickets to have people come and see him to begin to lay the predicate for a potential run.
Politics is a four-season sport in America now. Karl, thank you.
That's right.
We'll speak very soon live in Austin. Nice to see you, Karl. Thanks.